Somewhere in the Saudi Arabian desert, right now, a construction project is underway that makes every skyscraper, every highway, every stadium ever built look small. Not a city block, not a neighborhood, a city, a single continuous structure, 170 kilometers long, 500 meters tall, 200 meters wide. No cars, no streets, no carbon emissions. 9 million people living inside what is essentially one enormous building, stretched across the desert like a mirror wall you can see from space. They call it the Line. And the story of what's actually happening with it is more interesting than any promotional video they've released. Let's go back to the beginning. In 2017, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stood in front of cameras and announced one of the most ambitious construction projects in human history. He called it Neom, a name built from the Greek prefix neo, meaning new, and the letter M, the first letter of his name and the Arabic word for future. The plan was to build an entirely new region on Saudi Arabia's northwest coast on the Red Sea, roughly the size of Belgium. Inside it would be 5 distinct zones: a floating industrial port, a ski resort in the mountains, a luxury island, a coastal city, and at the center of all of it, the Line. The pitch was something nobody had ever said out loud before with a straight face. Every amenity, gym, school, hospital, shop, within a 5-minute walk, a high-speed rail system running end to end in 20 minutes, fully powered by renewable energy, monitored by AI, zero pollution, zero traffic, a city designed not around cars like every city since the 1900s, but around people. The renders looked like science fiction. 2 enormous mirrored walls rising out of the desert, stretching to the horizon in both directions. A horizontal skyscraper, a city that doesn't sprawl outward, but stacks upward. Contained, efficient, impossible to ignore. The price tag, $500 billion. Some industry estimates put the full cost closer to $9 trillion. The world looked at the plans and split immediately into 2 camps. One side said, this is the future of urban living, a template for how cities should be built when land is expensive, populations are dense, and the planet can't absorb any more car exhaust. The other side said this is the most expensive vanity project in human history, and it will never be finished. Both sides had a point. Let's talk about what actually got built. As of early 2026, the construction site at the Line shows extensive earthworks. The desert has been carved open, massive foundations have been laid. You can see it on satellite images, a scar across the landscape about 2.4 kilometers long, out of 170 planned. In September 2025, Saudi Arabia's Sovereign Wealth Fund suspended construction until further notice. The project had burned through at least $50 billion. An internal audit found what one report described as evidence of deliberate manipulation by project managers. Foreign investors, who Saudi Arabia had hoped would flood in, largely didn't. Oil prices dropped, and with them, the kingdom's budget. In January 2026, they indefinitely postponed the 2029 Asian Winter Games that were supposed to be held at Trojana, the mountain ski resort that was also part of Neom. Almaty, Kazakhstan, stepped in as the replacement host within days. By May 2026, reports confirmed that Saudi Arabia had delayed the line's construction until at least after 2030. The new plan for the first phase, a completed segment of about 5 kilometers by 2034, in time for the FIFA World Cup Saudi Arabia is hosting that year, 5 kilometers out of 170. And the vision itself has changed. The original pitch was residential, 9 million people living inside the Line. The new pitch is industrial, data centers, AI infrastructure, a hub for technology investment. Saudi Arabia wants to be a global leader in artificial intelligence, and the desert location with abundant solar energy and no neighbors turns out to be an excellent place to cool server farms. So the city of the future is being quietly repurposed into the data center of the future. Now, here's the part the headlines don't tell you. Neom isn't dead, and the line's core idea isn't crazy. The problems with Neom aren't really problems with the concept of building a better city. They're problems with trying to build the most complicated structure in human history at full scale, all at once, in a decade, with one country's sovereign wealth fund. That's not an architecture failure. That's a project management failure. The physics still work. The urban planning logic still holds. Think about what cities actually cost. New York City's subway system, not built, just maintained, runs about $2 billion a year. A single mile of urban freeway in a dense American city costs anywhere from $50 to $500 million to build. Houston has spent more money building and maintaining its highway network over the last 50 years than Neom's original stated budget. And Houston is a city specifically famous for being unlivable without a car. The argument for the line's design isn't wild when you look at it that way. Cities built around cars are enormously expensive to maintain, terrible for health, and locked into a design philosophy that made sense in 1950 and makes less sense every year. The question was never whether a better template was possible. It was whether this particular attempt, at this particular scale, in this particular place, on this particular timeline, was realistic. The answer clearly was no. But here's what is happening in the meantime. Egypt has been quietly building its own new capital city, 45 kilometers east of Cairo, in the desert, a city called the New Capital, which the government is now debating renaming Memphis after the ancient pharaonic capital, is actually operational. Government ministries are running from it. Parliament has moved. The central bank relocated. Africa's tallest building, a 385-meter tower called the Iconic Tower, is complete and standing. Around 1,500 families are already living there. It's designed for 6.5 million people, with an airport, artificial lakes, a 90-square-kilometer solar farm, and enough housing to pull millions out of one of the most overcrowded capitals on the planet. Nobody talks about Egypt's new capital the way they talk about the line, because Egypt didn't make cinematic promotional videos. They just built it, and that contrast tells you something true about how the future actually arrives. It doesn't usually show up looking like a science fiction render. It shows up looking boring, incremental, and underpublicized, until one day you look up and realize the world quietly rearranged itself while you were paying attention to the flashier version. The line may yet be built, not at 170 kilometers, not by 2030, not for 9 million people. But the earthworks are real. The foundation is poured. The idea of a car-free, walkable, vertically integrated city isn't going away. It's going to keep getting cheaper and easier to build as construction technology advances, as the cost of solar energy drops, as AI gets better at managing complex infrastructure systems. The cities being designed today will still be standing in 200 years. The question isn't whether the future of cities looks different from the present. It does. The question is, which version of the future actually gets built?